Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be going through all, I think 123 books that I read in 2024 and tier ranking them all on a scale that I made up. So if that sounds fun to you, stick around. I'm gonna go ahead and start my screen recording here. I have a water. Does anybody else obsessed with the Waterloo grape flavor? It tastes like a Welch's soda with no sugar in it. I don't know, is that good? Is it bad? I don't know, but I'm obsessed with it and I'm gonna be drinking it during this video. So let's go ahead and look at my tiers. We have, the highest tier is I have no notes, because I have no notes. These books are perfect. I will not hear anything bad about them. Tier number 2, almost perfect. For books that I liked a lot, I would solidly recommend. They didn't quite make it all the way to the top of my list, but they're still really great books. In the third tier, we have solid read. Decent book, liked it. Wasn't my favorite, but still think it's good. And then we have meh, which is for books that I did not like and or just never think about. And then we have I should have DNF'd. And that's for books that I really hated, including books that I probably actually DNF'd, because I think some of those are in this list too. And I will tell you which ones they are when we get there. But let's go ahead and get started. Just right at the beginning, I'm just going to take them in the order that they come in. Yes, it's a lot of books, but let's scroll back up here. All right. My first book is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. This is the first book in the Expanse series, which I have read. I read 3 of those books this year. This one was not my favorite of the series so far, but I liked it a lot, obviously, because I kept going. So we're going to put that in almost perfect. It would have been perfect if it had had slightly more character development. All right, book number 2, we have Love Theoretically. I already can't talk. Book 2, already can't talk. All right, we have Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, and this is my favorite of her books. Just in general, I think it's the best one, and I have no notes. It's my favorite one of her books, and I, in general, really love Ali Hazelwood. Book number 3, In an Absent Dream by Shauna McGuire. I read several of the Wayward Children books this year. I think this is book number 4. I think that's right. So this is Lindy's story. If you've read the books, you know what I mean. This is one of the best ones. It wasn't my absolute favorite, but I am going to put it up here in almost perfect because I'm pretty sure that I cried. All right. Book number 3, Role Playing. This is an adult romance with 2 gamers who are supposed to be in their late 40s, and one of them at least acts like she's a teenager, and I didn't think the gaming was realistic, and I really hated it. So it's going to go down here and should have DNF'd because I should have DNF'd it. Next we have The Justice of Kings. This is the first book in, I don't remember the name of the series, by Richard Swan, and I didn't like it because you follow around a teenage girl who was really annoying to be in her head the whole time. I was not a fan. Then we have Meet Me in London. This is a Christmas romance. I actually DNF'd this book. I thought it was fine in some ways, but also just wasn't doing anything for me, so that gets a DNF. And so far, I look like a giant hater. Let's keep going. Okay, The Spear Cuts Through Water. This was one of my top books of the year. It has a super unique style to it, narrative style. I would highly recommend it if you've never read it. Love it. No notes. Then we have Circe by Madeline Miller. This is not my favorite one of her books. I actually like The Song of Achilles a little bit better, but I think it's a fantastic book. And I'm going to put it up here in almost perfect. Okay, next we have Lunar New Year Love Story. This is a cute little graphic novel, young adult graphic novel. I thought it was cute. It didn't change my life or anything, but I would recommend it if you're looking for a graphic novel that's going to give you some information about some different cultures. I did really enjoy it. This is How You Lose the Time War. This is going to be, I have no notes. Again, I absolutely love this book, and I also absolutely understand the people who completely hate this book. But I have a real high tolerance for purple prose and not understanding how the time travel works. All right. Next we have The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Stormlight Archive, and I think that it's up here and I have no notes. It's really, really great. I've read it twice, so that was a reread. Loved it. We have Gideon the Ninth. From the Locked Tomb series, this is the best book in the series so far, in my opinion, and I could read it over and over again just to listen to the jokes that Gideon makes, so I have no notes on that one. Okay, next we have Ruthless Vows. Ruthless Vows is the second book. It follows up Divine Rivals. I can't remember the name of the duology. And it was a big disappointment for me after the first book. I thought it was too long, and the main couple, they were apart forever, and I just really didn't like it. So I'm going to put it here at meh, which is kind of sad because I definitely had no notes for the first book. The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is another romantasy. You will not see a lot of this in my list because I struggle to find ones that I like. This one, I liked the book all the way up until the last 15%, and then I hated the book. So I'm going to put it here at solid read because I do think that if you're not going to be bothered by the way the book ends, which I'm not spoiling, you probably like it a lot more than I did. It's pretty good. Okay, Some Desperate Glory by Emily Tesh. I read this earlier this year. It did win the Hugo Award. It is a kind of a dystopian science fiction, I think, and I think it was almost perfect. We have Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is the first book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, and it gets solid read. I liked it. Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. I actually like this better than the first book, so we are going to put this, I think I'm going to put it on almost perfect. It doesn't quite make it all the way to I have no notes, because I have a few notes, but I really loved it. The Sword of Kaigan by M.L. Wang. This one gets a solid read. It had some pacing issues for me, but I did really enjoy it overall. God Killer by Hannah Kaner. Oh, this one's really tough for me. I think I'm just swayed by how pretty the cover is, but I did like a lot of things about this book. I thought pacing-wise, I thought it was really uneven. There are some spots where it really dragged for me, and it's somewhere between solid read and meh. I think I'm going to put it at solid read. I don't want to put it all the way down on meh because I don't think it was that bad. Then we have In Memoriam by Alice Wynne, which is historical fiction set during World War I, which I absolutely loved. I have no notes. Tress of the Emerald Sea. Okay, so I gave this book 5 stars. I really loved it, but I can't put it at I have no notes because of the heavy dose of Brandon Sanderson humor, which is just not my thing. I'm going to put it at almost perfect. I think it's a great book. I think it would be a good introduction to Sanderson, but there's a lot of him being funny in it. So if you don't like that, you're not going to like it. We have What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher, and I honestly adore T. Kingfisher so much. I'm going to put this at almost perfect. The Warm Hands of Ghosts. Okay, so this one I was so excited about, but I didn't think the fantastical elements in it worked for me. I did like the World War I story because it is historical fantasy, and I just didn't care about the other parts. So I think I'm going to put it down on meh. I think I gave it a 3.5 star, but I think it's a meh. I just never think about it. Next we have Bride by Allie Hazelwood. Oh, Bride, man. I was so entertained by this book, and I was so freaked out by the spicy parts of it. It's really hard to know where to put it, quite frankly. But I think I'm going to put it on solid read because I did quite enjoy it, except for the parts that I had to skip over reading really quickly. Next we have Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. Again, this is the second book in the God Killer series, and I really didn't like this one. I did not DNF it, but I should have because it was really slow. We are all hoping that the third book is better, and I am going to read it, so I will let you know what I think. Next, we have The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This one is obviously, I have no notes, one of my favorite books of the year. You've heard me talk about it way too much. We have Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I felt very meh about this book, to be honest. I know it's beloved, but I didn't care about any of the characters, and I hated the love triangle. Okay, we have Caliban's War. This is book number 2 in The Expanse, and I thought it was the weakest one that I've read so far. I'm going to put it at solid read. It was a solid read, but there was some stuff I didn't like in it, so it doesn't get into one of the top 2 tiers for me. We have One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, which is my current example of romantasy that I like. So I'm going to put this here on almost perfect because I really enjoyed it. The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. This was a disappointment for me, although I did enjoy it and give it 4 stars. So I'm going to put it at solid read, but I just wish that it had been a little bit better. Oh, I did include apparently the lone picture book that I read this year. This is Big. It is a book that I would highly recommend you reading with your children or reading for yourself, to be honest. If you're someone who sometimes feels like, or your child is someone who people say takes up too much space, you need to read this. It goes in I Have No Notes. Next, we have Floating Hotel by Grace Curtis. This was a really fun found family story set in space with some humor and also some heart, and I really thought it was great and needs more people to read it. It's not been as popular as I would like, so we're going to put that at almost perfect. A Short Walk Through a Wide World. This is a debut novel that is about a girl who can't stay in one place or she gets very, very ill. I'm going to put it at solid read. I really liked it, but I don't find that it's something I think about a whole lot. The Brides of High Hill. This is the 5th book in the Singing Hills saga and by Nevo, and I liked it. I thought it was very interesting. It has a fun twist, and I'm going to put it here at solid read. The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. Okay, so I gave this book 5 stars, and I really feel like that was just some kind of enthusiasm that I was having at the moment, because I don't really feel like it was that great. It's not going up on I Have No Notes. I'm going to put it at solid read again, because I just haven't thought about it that much. Funny Story by Emily Henry goes to I Have No Notes. This is my favorite one of her books. I just related so much to the main character. And yeah, Northwoods, I Have No Notes. Northwoods is a fantastic literary fiction. Would highly recommend it. The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence was very disappointing to me. I thought it was very long and had some pacing issues, and I almost DNF'd it, but I didn't. But I'm going to put it here on meh. I know a lot of people love it, but I really struggled with it. But I'm still planning to read the second one, so maybe I'll change. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is actually my favorite in the series so far, so I'm going to put it up here on I Have No Notes, but it's actually slightly better than The Way of Kings, I think, but they're both great. Someone You Can Build a Nest In. This is a strange, cozy horror novel where the monster is the main character of the novel. And man, it's just so unusual and so different, and I can't stop thinking about it. So I'm going to put it up here on almost perfect. It almost makes it all the way to the top for me. And if you haven't read it and you like cozy horror, you really should. We have Ghost Station by S.A. Barnes. I'm going to put that down in the bottom tier so fast. I was so disappointed by that book. Ugh, I'm still mad when I think about it. Her first book was decent, and oh man, that was not. Harrow the Ninth from the Locked Tomb series. So Harrow is the hardest of the first 3 books to get through in terms of it being confusing. It's for a reason, but I struggled a little bit. So I'm going to put it, oh gosh. But it was so worth it. So I'm going to put it at almost perfect. I can't put it all the way at the top because I had a hard time. And then we have Two Twisted Crowns, which is the second book in this duology. I'm going to put it at solid read. A Master of Gym by P.J. Lee Clark. This was such an unusual and fun steampunky world set in like a 1920s kind of Cairo. I thought it was really great. I'm going to put it at almost perfect. The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. Okay, so I DNF'd this book about 60% of the way through, but I also think that it had one of the best opening chapters to a novel that I have ever read, so I'm very conflicted about it. I'm actually going to put it here in solid read, even though I didn't finish the last 40%, because that may have just been a me thing. I think it's great, and I love Simon Jimenez. When Among Crows by Veronica Roth. This was a novella that is based on the Baba Yaga myth, and it was fine. It's a meh. I never think about it. It just wasn't my absolute favorite book. Winter's Orbit. This one is a sci-fi romance that I absolutely loved. I'm putting it up here on I Have No Notes. I thought it was so great. Six of Crows. This is the first book in the duology. I didn't like it as much as Crooked Kingdom, so I'm going to put it on solid read, but don't get mad at me. Just hang on until we get to the second book, and then you'll feel better. The Ministry of Time. I hated The Ministry of Time a lot. You can watch me rant about it in many videos. It's definitely, I should have DNF'd. The Ballad of Never After. That's the second book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. It's going to go at meh. I didn't care about it that much. The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. I really enjoyed. I'm going to put it at almost perfect. I did give it 5 stars. Now we have Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, and I struggled my way through Oathbringer. It's kind of where his books started to feel a little bit long to me. I'm going to put it at solid read because it was a solid read, but it didn't really change my life. The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This was a meh for me. I can appreciate how it's cozy and how many people love it, but for me, it didn't have enough stakes. Everyone in my family has killed someone. This is a very meta, tongue-in-cheek mystery that I liked, although I didn't think the ending was great. So I'm going to put it at solid read, but I can't really take it any higher than that because of that reason. The Stardust Grail by Yumi Kitase. This is like Indiana Jones in space is the description, and it really is. It could have been better. I thought that I didn't care about the characters as much as I wanted, but it was still a solid read. One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Y'all know that I hated this book because of the Subway spicy parts and how gross I thought that was. So that one is down here on I Should Have DNF'd. A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. I thought this was cute. I'm going to give it a solid read. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I enjoyed it. The Light of the Jedi. Okay, so out of the 2 Star Wars books that I read this year, I liked this one the best. I'm going to put it at solid read. I didn't think it was an amazing book, but I thought it was okay. And then we have the second book, who I can't remember the name of. It's going to go in meh. I had a hard time getting through it. The Rising Storm. That's what it is. As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow. This was a good book. This was a good book. It made me cry. I'm going to put it at solid read. Little too much romance in it for me, but I thought it was really good. Severance by Ling Ma. This is a post-apocalyptic story that is supposed to kind of tell the millennial story. I don't know if I relate to that exactly, but I'm going to put it at solid read. I really enjoyed it. The Mercy of Gods by James S. A. Corey. This was one of my most disappointing books of the year. I'm going to put it at meh. I just did not feel like it lived up to The Expanse at all. Sorcery of Thorns. I think that was a good book. I liked it. No complaints. Solid read. The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. This is the second T. Kingfisher horror book that I've read, and I thought it was quite good, much better than I was expecting it to be. Not quite at the level of some of her other books, so I'm going to put it here at solid read, but it's really close to getting up to almost perfect. September House. Oh, this is a fantastic haunted house story. If you like a haunted house story and you've never read September House, what are you doing? I'm putting it up here at I have no notes because I thought it was so good. The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. This is a historical horror suspense gothic novel. I really didn't like it. I'm going to put it down here and I should have DNF'd because I should have. Episode 13. This was a found material horror story about a ghost hunter TV show, and I didn't think it worked in book form. It just was hard for me to get through all the scripts, and so I'm putting it down here and I should have DNF'd. I think I did DNF it. The Ex-Evangelicals. This is a nonfiction about someone who left the evangelical church, and it was fine, but I didn't feel like it knew what it wanted to be. And I'm going to put it on solid read. The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. This is definitely up at I have no notes. This is so amazing. Historical horror about a reform school for African-American boys set in Florida in the 1950s. So heartbreaking. Beartown. Beartown was a DNF for me, but I'm not mad at it. Like, I don't want to put it down here because I think I might come back to it and finish the rest of the book. So I'm going to put it at solid read right now, and we'll see what happens. Challenger is a nonfiction that I have I'm going to put it at almost perfect because it was pretty long for a nonfiction story about the Challenger space shuttle disaster, but it was still great, and I would definitely recommend it. The Book Thief, almost perfect. I love The Book Thief. I thought that the literary device where we are following death as the narrator did make it harder for me to get close to the characters, so that's why it's not all the way up there on the top. Long Live Evil. Should have DNF'd it. Really didn't like it. Definitely not reading the sequel. Nona the Ninth. I think that we are going to put that on I have no notes. That's my second favorite of the book, of the Locked Tomb series, and I just really enjoyed it. Come Tumbling Down by Shauna McGuire. This is book 5? I think it's book 5. Or is it? Oh, I'm not sure. Wait, I'm gonna have to look that one up. So we'll come back to that. Here, go somewhere else. Okay, so we have James by Percival Everett. That's gonna be up in the top tier, obviously. So great. And then Where the Dark Stands Still is a young adult retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I thought it was fine. It might, honestly, I might put it down here in meh. I don't ever think about it. It was fine. We Solve Murders by Richard Osman. I have no notes. I loved the start of a new series by him. Air by Sabaa Tahir. This is the continuation of the Ember and the Ashes series, and I thought it was almost perfect. I really, really loved it. Okay, next we have An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson. This is a meh for me. Almost I should have DNF'd, but I liked it more than that, but it really didn't do anything different. I didn't feel like. The Wedding Witch. This was a holiday-themed romance. We're putting that in solid read. It was cute. A Feminist Guide to ADHD. I thought this was kind of bad. I thought that if you've ever read anything else about ADHD, you already knew all the stuff. And it was definitely not what it said, which was a feminist guide. That did not happen. Okay, We Used to Live Here. This was such a good, scary book. I'm going to put it at almost perfect. It would have gotten up to I have no notes, only it did a couple things that I don't like in horror fiction that I'm not going to go into for spoiler reasons, but not quite there. Youth Group is a fun graphic novel that I am going to put in almost perfect. I really loved it, and I think it's because I have seen the entirety of Buffy the Vampire Slayer like 8 times. If you're like me, you're going to like that too. A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. That is going to be, I think, in almost perfect. I gave it 5 stars. I think it's a great book. The 13th Tale. You know what? I got no notes on The 13th Tale. That is a classic Gothic literary fiction, and I recommend it. Same Small Things Like These, also going to go up here. Such a moving book to take place in such a small period of time. No notes. Service Model. Oh, we're on a roll. Service Model goes up there too. I love a story about a robot that's funny and also philosophical, and I just think more people need to read Service Model. The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. So this is the second book in that duology, and it is going straight to I should have DNF'd because I hated it. Somewhere Beyond the Sea. We're going to put that at solid read. I thought it was fine, but I just didn't love it the way I did the first book. The Wood at Midwinter. That's a short story by Susanna Clark. It was fine. I'm going to put that at solid read also. The Dissonance. So this one's going to go at almost perfect. This is a horror fantasy novel that I have just seen literally nobody talking about, but I really enjoyed it. I think the author also wrote A Cosmology of Monsters, if you've heard of that one. And you should check it out if you like that book. The God of the Woods. I have no notes. This was my favorite piece of historical fiction that I read this year. I think it only has like 2 books to compete with, but we're going with it. Model Home by Rivers Solomon. Should have DNF'd. Didn't like it. Didn't think it was scary. Just not for me. The Lost Story by Meg Schaffer. Hated. Did not like it. Those characters were in their 30s, but they felt 12. No thank you. Blood over Brighthaven. This gets an I have no notes because I have no notes. It's such a great fantasy story. City in Glass by Nevo. This one is going to go in solid read. I think it was fine. I think the language was very poetic. Nevo always has the best language, but it was, not quite there. The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door. It's going to go in almost perfect. This is a dark academia fantasy. Really enjoyed it. How to Solve Your Own Murder. That's going to go up on I have no notes because I just thought it was so fun. I loved it so much. The Hacienda. This is a kind of like a Mexican retelling of Rebecca. Has to go up and I have no notes. Ronald Malfi's Come With Me. So I didn't really like this one. I'm going to put it at meh, just because it was not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be scary, and then it was more like a thriller, and that wasn't what I was looking for. Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky is going to go in meh for me also. I read most of this book. I DNF'd it like really late, like 80%, just because I didn't care anymore. The characters just were the main character was very not for me. Although the science and the plot line, like that was very interesting. I just didn't like the main character. The Clackety, this is a middle grade novel that I read because it won some awards, and it was just fine. We'll put that in meh. Cemetery Boys. I DNF'd that. It was fine. Solid read. Didn't quite finish it, but still good. The Last Gifts of the Universe. This was my #1 book of the year, so you know it's going up here. And I have no notes. If you are into cozy fantasy, if you're into cozy sci-fi and you like cats, yeah, you're gonna want to read that one. Southernmost by Silas House. This is a literary fiction novel. I thought it was going to be mostly about what it's like to confront prejudice as a gay man in a southern town, but it took a very long detour in the middle of the book to a different place setting, and I didn't care about it as much, but I'm still going to put it at solid read. I just thought it wasn't quite what I was expecting. Lovelight Farms is going to go up at almost perfect for me. That was very cute. The Final Girls Support Group by Grady Hendrix. That was a solid read. I liked it. It was my least favorite of his books, though, probably. A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, all the way up here, and I have no notes. I absolutely loved this book. It's one of my favorites of hers, and I would recommend it. House of Hollow. This is a young adult, kind of creepy, gothic body horror kind of book. I'm not really sure what to call it, and it was decent, but it was weird. I'm going to put it at solid read. It was almost a meh for me. I don't know. And then we have Abaddon's Gate by James S.A. Corey. This was the best one from the series, and I'm going to put it up here on the top tier because I gave it 5 stars. We have The Dead Cattail Assassins. I DNF'd this book. It was very meh, but I'm going to put it at meh because it wasn't as bad as the I Should Have DNF'd books, which is funny because I did DNF it. The Life Impossible by Matt Haig is going all the way on that bottom tier because I absolutely hated that book. I hated it so much. It was so much self-help speak, and I was really not into it. Come Tumbling Down by Shauna McGuire. We're back to that again. I still don't remember which one it is, but I think we're going to put it at solid read because how can it not be? That series is one of my favorites. We're going to put Slow Dance by Rainbow Rowell at solid read. That is her adult contemporary romance, and I thought it was good and realistic, but I never think about it. Ling Han. This is a very strange little novella that I quite enjoyed, but also sometimes didn't. I'm going to put it at solid read because I don't know what to say about it. We have the Hazelborn Ladies Motorcycle and Flying Club. This is historical fiction set post-World War I. We're going to put it at solid read. I liked it. Didn't love it. Night of the Living Cat is a manga, the only one I read this year, and it was almost perfect, man. It is zombies, but you turn into cats, and it was amazing. We have You Should Be So Lucky. I have no notes. This was probably the best romance that I read this year. It is a LGBT story set in the 1960s with a reporter and a baseball player, and it is so, so good. Then we have The Witch Would Not, which, I'm going to put on almost perfect. I really love this. This is Olivia Atwater. It's her Victorian fairy tales series. It had a really nice gothic feel to it, and I just really enjoyed it. T. Kingfisher, A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. This one's going to go on solid read. It's my least favorite of her books that I've read so far, although I did really like it and gave it 4 stars. We have She Is a Haunting, which I DNF'd and really didn't like, so that one's going to go down here. We were running out of room. We were almost done. The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wasteland. This is going to go up on almost perfect. I really love this book. It is a historical fantasy that is set on a train. We have The Will of the Many, which I tried to read twice and DNF'd both times. I don't think it's terrible, and I get why people like it, but I was really frustrated by the main character who was so perfect that I could not. So I think we're going to just go ahead and put it in meh. Okay, and then I'm just scroll down for my other 2. We have Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood. This one goes in meh. It's her young adult romance, and I didn't really like it. We have Orbital by Samantha Harvey, which if you watched my last video, you know that I really, really, really hated and thought nothing happened and didn't understand why it won an award. So we're going to put that in I Should Have DNF'd because I should have DNF'd it. And then finally, for my last book, we have Crooked Kingdom. This is the second book in the Six of Crows duology. And as I said, you all weren't going to be mad at me anymore because that's gone all the way up here and I have no notes. And I think if you read that series, you need to read both books because all the things I was disappointed in the first book were totally exceeded my expectation in the second. And I really enjoyed it. So go ahead and look at my list here and see all the books that I really loved up here. I think that is a pretty good spread. We have the most books in the middle, as it should be. And then my meh and my I should have DNF'd list are slightly shorter, which is great. I'm not always perfect at picking books that I am going to love, but I sure do try my best. With that, if you have made it all the way through my incredibly long tier list, I appreciate that. Go ahead and leave me a comment if you have anything to say about my choices in this list. I would love to hear it. And I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.